Kale, I just meant, she began, her voice wavering, but he waved her off, turning back to the murky water. It's fine. You don't need to explain. I'm just a damn pack to you, right? Just a bad memory haunting your dreams, he grumbled, bitterness creeping into his tone. A bad memory? Jolene echoed, her brows knitting together. Father always said you were. Good for nothing? A leech? Kale cut in, spinning around to face her. Is that what he said? Because I don't remember a lot of things about him. Just that he left you with this sinking ship of dreams. The mention of her father's abandonment stung, unearthing feelings she had sought to fortify. She took a step back, trying to muster her composure. You don't know the half of it, Kale. Is it too much to ask for a little faith? And what? Have faith in a future I can't guarantee? Kale's voice softened, yet the weight of his words lingered painfully. It's hard to believe in a future when the past chains you. Just as he finished speaking, Felicity's younger brother Malik emerged from the weathered boathouse with a crooked smile and a handful of bright red lilies. Hey, local botanist here. I brought flowers for your rusty relic, he declared, grinning as he waggled the flowers in the air. The tension swirled around them, momentarily thawed by his lightheartedness, though it still hung heavy. Malik, that's not... Jolene started, but he cut her off, oblivious to the brewing storm. Listen, if we can't sell tours, maybe we should do something more. Magical, he suggested, as he plopped down beside Kale, eager to shift the mood. I mean, a swamp soiree, lights, music, and of course, my world-famous gumbo. He beamed, casting away shadows like sunshine filtering through trees. Gumbo? You think people will flock to the swamp for gumbo? Kale laughed despite himself, the sound cutting through the knot of tension. Next, you'll be serving voodoo dolls and calling it an attraction. Malik beamed, unfazed by the ribbing. Sure, and if anyone disputes it, we'll shove a crocodile at them, or maybe just hold them hostage in the back while I cook. Jolene couldn't suppress her laughter, the absurdity washing over her like the swamp water itself. You really think a crocodile is going to sell tickets? Listen, if these tourists are going to abandon all common sense, why not have a little fun with it? Malik retorted, a glimmer of mischief in his brown eyes. Kale leaned back, shaking his head with a smile starting to break through his brooding facade. You know, maybe you might just be onto something, kid. Jolene allowed herself a moment's respite as she watched the two of them. A flicker of hope shone bright in her chest. Could it be? There was warmth in the camaraderie, the mischief edging away the pain. If they could brainstorm a way out of this sticky quagmire together, perhaps their own entangled lives could be rewritten too. With newfound determination, Jolene stepped forward, a smile sketching across her lips. New beginnings, huh? She said, locking eyes with Kale, faint remnants of the earlier argument still echoing between them. Then, let's not waste it. Kale nodded, the weight of shadows momentarily lifting as they leaned back into laughter, Malik's infectious energy lighting the dim corners of their uncertainty. The world ahead, tinged with mischief and joy, seemed somehow bright again. Scene 84, Past Haunts and Future Joys. The air hung thick with the faint musk of damp earth, the swamp's whispers lapping at the edges of consciousness like playful spirits. Slightly weathered, the makeshift airboat dock swayed gently, creaking under the weight of nostalgia. A narrow beam of late afternoon sun pierced through the skeletal branches above, illuminating Felicity Duval's earnest face as she squinted against the light. What would you do if you could rewrite your past? Felicity's voice cut through the quiet, curiosity woven into her tone. She was unpacking a tangle of gear life vests and spare paddles. Kale Omari leaned back against the dock, arms crossed as his gaze flicked toward the dark waters below. The surface shimmered, concealing secrets that twisted in the depths. His jaw clenched at the question, tension radiating from him like heat from the sun. You can't just edit life like that, Felicity. Things, they build on each other. Her eyes lingered on him, searching for cracks. But what if you could? What if you had that chance? She stood up straight, gesturing broadly, the sunlight capturing the vibrant hues of her auburn hair. Don't you ever wish you could go back, fix things? Fix? A humorless chuckle escaped him, floating away like a distant memory. Sure, I've got a few items on my to-don't list, but it's complicated. He paused, the air thickening, their connection charging like static before a storm. From the shadows of the tree line, the distant laughter of friends occasionally rose, punctuated by the plucking sound of a guitar. Meanwhile, over by the bonfire, Layla and Jamal seemed to plot some mischief, eyes darting conspiratorially toward the dock. Complicated? Felicity dared him with a glance, her brow arched like a defiant willow. Complicated is running an airboat tour company and trying to keep it afloat when your family legacy feels more like a sinking ship. She took a step closer, and for a moment the world contracted. No laughter, no plotting friends. It was just them, a heartbeat apart. What if you'd fought harder for what you wanted? Wouldn't you want a chance to chase the joy instead of the ghosts? He turned, biting back memories that clawed at his insides. Joy? Cale echoed, his features softening the slightest bit. There's a reason some paths remain untraveled. Across the bonfire, Layla's voice rang through. Hey, does anyone want to help me sabotage Jamal's grand plan to grill Snake? The commotion dragged Cale's attention away with a reluctant smile creeping in as he pictured Jamal's overly confident defense of his culinary prowess. Isn't that risky? He called out, half amused. You know, the last time he grilled, we nearly founded a new religion called Take Cover from Jamal's Barbecue. Felicity laughed, warmth radiating through the space between them. At least this time, you won't be the main course. But the mirth flickered as Cale's expression hardened again. He turned his gaze back to the water, playing an intricate game of avoidance. Sometimes it feels like the past weighs more than the future, he said, almost to himself, like those ghosts will just drag you down. Felicity's frustration simmered, her fingers twitching with the urge to reach out. You don't have to face them alone, Cale, not with me. Her voice became softer, savoring the moment yet urgent as if supping on the rising tension. But just then, Jamal broke through the underbrush, a wide grin piercing the moment. Hey, who wants to witness culinary glory? I'd prefer not to make history with a snake. He hoisted up a garland of herbs like a banner, his voice booming with enthusiasm. History in the making, Layla added, echoing Jamal's sentiment with her own unique brand of humor. Cale instantly grimaced, the moment feeling less serious than it was before. Great, just what I want to eat, potential poison. Better than the past, Felicity chimed in, a glimmer of wild hope igniting. She put her hands on her hips, a playful challenge in her eyes. Are you brave enough to join us, or will you dwell on what could have been? He looked at her, challenging, enticing, and utterly irresistible. Careful, you might win this round. Their chemistry sparked, the air electrifying between them like an unspoken confession, thick with the uncharted joys they might still find. For now, laughter and mischief echoed behind them, but Cale knew they were at the edge of something greater. The past may haunt them, but perhaps a future of joy awaited just beyond the swamp's darkened depths. Scene 85, a night of revelations. The air was thick with humidity, the swamp alive with the croaks of distant frogs and the shushing whispers of leaves swaying under the watchful gaze of a sliver of moonlight. Cale Omari stood on the rickety wooden porch of his ancestral home, the old beams squeaking under his weight. The evening breeze ruffled his dark curls, as if coaxing the storm within him to settle. Just beyond the porch, a cluster of fireflies flickered like small stars lost between worlds, their glow barely penetrating the oppressive darkness of the surrounding bog. Cale sighed, the sound heavy with unspoken worries. He felt trapped, caught between the restless energy that pooled in his veins and the sticky web of expectations binding him to the very swamp he both loved and loathed. Inside, Felicity Duval adjusted her hair in the mirror, the glow of a single bulb highlighting her expressive eyes. The reflection proved deceptively calm, masking a whirlwind of thoughts. You can do this, she murmured to herself, taking a deep breath that filled her lungs with the scent of aged wood and the faint musk of wet earth. She was here to embrace honesty, to unearth the seedlings of truth buried beneath layers of guilt and yearning. Just be real, Felicity, she whispered as she stepped out, squeezing her hands together, the dark fabric of her dress brushing softly against her thighs. As she emerged onto the porch, Cale turned swiftly, caught off guard. The surprise melted into a warm smile, illuminating his brooding demeanor. I thought you might not come, he said, feigning a nonchalance that did little to disguise his relief. Felicity laughed lightly, her voice lilting like the notes of a forgotten song. The swamp's calling, isn't it? How could I resist? Ha! More like the swamp's been trying to swallow me whole. Kale chuckled, the sound easing the tension that hung between them like a heavy curtain. She moved closer, leaning against the railing. Well, it won't get far if we're here, right? Right, he said, their eyes locking, a flicker of something unnameable passing between them. Just then, from the misty shadows of the swamp, Tara, Felicity's closest friend, barged onto the scene with a triumphant grin plastered across her face. Did I hear the lovely Felicity Duval was near? She fanned herself dramatically. The swamp has never looked better. Cale rolled his eyes, unable to fight the smile creeping onto his lips. Ever the dramatist, Tara. Please, enlighten us on the true lore of the swamp. Only if you promise to entertain me earlier next time. Tara shot back, her light-hearted banter filling the space, punctuated by her infectious laughter. Felicity jabbed playfully at Tara's arm. Be careful, or I'll send you off on another ghost tour with old Mrs. Branch. Ooh, anything but that. Tara feigned horror, clutching her heart. The frolicking attitude broke Cale free of his own shadowy thoughts momentarily. Enjoying the evening, are we? A gravelly voice came from the shadows, revealing Calvin, another of Cale's childhood friends, emerging as if conjured by the swamp itself. Or do I need to add a haunted tale of my own? Calvin, bring something worth listening to next time, Felicity teased. It should be a requirement to spice up our swamp life. Cale watched the banter unfold, laughter spilling forth, lightening the atmosphere. Yet within him, an undercurrent of concern gnawed. As the connections bloomed around him, he couldn't shake the looming darkness of his past, the pact that would always tether him to mischief. Once the mirth subsided, Felicity turned her gaze to Cale, and in the brief silence that followed, the weight of their impending honesty settled heavily between them. Cale, she started, hesitating slightly. Yeah? I've always felt... She paused again, swallowing hard. Dreams have a way of intertwining, like waterways. They can be beautiful but terrifying, right? Cale leaned closer, drawn in by her vulnerability. What about your dreams, Felicity? Oh, they're a mix of chaos and wonder, she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. I'm caught between what's expected of me and what I want. I've spent so long worrying, I forgot to dream. You're not alone in that, Cale replied softly, brushing his fingers against hers, an electric connection surging between them. I'm not just fighting for the swamp. I'm fighting for more than that. As her fingers curled around his, the world around them seemed to fade, their laughter replaced with something deeper, more profound. And as the night continued, the fireflies circled them, dancing to a rhythm that echoed the heartbeat of their shared revelations, a celebration of hopes and fears, binding destinies entwined in shadows and light. You know, I think it's finally time for new dreams, Felicity said, meeting his gaze with a promise reflected in her eyes. Cale offered a small smile, a flicker of warmth breaking through the storm. I'd like that. Scene 86. Plans foiled and feasts. The air hung heavy with humidity, making the swamp feel both languorous and electrified, as if the impending storm itself was charged with a certain mischief. Cale Omari stood beneath the haphazard awning of the rickety boathouse, his usually playful demeanor dulled by an edge of tension. The heavy scent of wet earth mingled with the whiff of fried okra drifting in from the nearby kitchen, both enticing and tragically nostalgic. He ran a hand through his tousled hair, watching the swirling eddies of the black water, feeling a tug at his own stormy insides. The food won't cook itself, you know, Felicity Duval called over her shoulder as she scooped glistening fish from a pot. The flames danced, reflecting in her determined eyes. Her curls were pulled back, with strands escaping like wild thoughts. What's the plan for tonight? I can't have you moping around like some lost gator. Cale cracked a semblance of a smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Plans? You mean the ones involving your family heirloom plates that are older than sin? He gestured, arms crossed. I can practically hear them shaking in anticipation of our feast. Excuse me for trying to keep tradition alive amidst the chaos you seem so fond of. Felicity snapped, stirring fiercely. Her frustration morphed into laughter, a bubble of levity released as she caught the glint of a large, sour lemon on the table. At least crush that lemon, or you risk the pride of Duval falling into that cauldron. He chuckled, the sound cut short by a larger, more pressing issue. But have you thought about Mama Lightfoot's cake? It's still sitting on the windowsill, unguarded. I don't see what that has to do with anything, Felicity smirked, flipping a pancake with an exaggerated toss. Are you saying we should just let it be eaten by the... Suddenly, loud screams filtered in through the wooden slats, disrupting their banter. Little Raylene, the neighbor's daughter, burst through the door, wide-eyed. Felicity! Cale! They're at it again! Who's at it? Felicity asked, brow raised, the kitchen's air now filled with curiosity and urgency. Marvin and the park rangers, Raylene continued, breathless. They found out he's been selling swamp tours without a license. Of course he did. It's literally what he does best, Cale sighed, stepping toward the door. The moisture in the air thickened, wrapping around him like a shroud. And it's my fault for not warning him. You would think the guy would take a hint. No, you leave Marvin to me. Felicity laughed, elbowing him aside. This one's on my turf. You keep cooking, or whatever it is you do best. The boathouse erupted with a symphony of chaos as food simmered and cries of tension escalated in the distance. Felicity bolted outside, leaving Cale peering after her, doubt swirling in his stomach, yet he felt compelled to follow. The scene outside was a blend of farce and fury. Marvin, a lanky figure with wild hair, stood tall with his arms flailing, surrounded by rangers in their crisp, unyielding uniforms. I swear on my mother's good china, this is not what it looks like, he protested, a tone between desperation and bravado. The rangers rolled their eyes, hardly looking convinced. Felicity slid in alongside Cale, both watching the spectacle unfold. Imagine selling swamp tours without the proper safety equipment. As if this swamp isn't dangerous enough, she whispered, amusement dancing behind her eyes. Dangerous is an understatement. He should auction off near-death experiences as a package deal, Cale replied, his voice low. Just then, Aunt Rosie burst through the commotion. What's going on here? I just put out the cornbread. Her presence was both comic and commanding, a natural tension easer as she navigated through the cluster of bodies. Your dear Marvin is a rogue, a pirate in these swamp waters, one ranger exclaimed, hands on hips. Pirate? Aunt Rosie snorted, crossing her arms. He's more like a landlocked fish out of water. As the debate escalated, laughter punctured the air, bringing humor to the absurdity of the situation. Raylene giggled, her face smudged with pancake batter, eyes twinkling with mischief while the crowd buzzed with opinions. Felicity leaned closer to Cale, her breath ghosting his ear. Think we'll survive this? Because I really need to make my grandma proud. He looked down into her shining eyes, the weight of their past mingling with a tempest of affection. With you here, Felicity, I wouldn't want to miss it for the world. The storm that brewed above mirrored the chaos around them, but instead of dread, it felt electric teasing, hinting at possibilities yet to come. Scene 87, Crossroads of Choice. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and wild honeysuckle, an almost lusciously sweet aroma that wrapped around Felicity Duval like the warm embrace of a long-lost friend. She stood at the edge of the lake, the water shimmering with the last whispers of daylight. Her heart raced, not from the beauty before her, but from the tumult inside. Had she truly anchored herself to this swamp with its endless whims, its relentless call for adventure? Cale Omari, or as they called him now, Belial, leaned against the gnarled trunk of an ancient cypress. The dirty blonde tendrils of his hair caught the last rays of sun, haloing him in a kind of desperate charm. They'd been through this same emotional whirlpool countless times, the uncharted territory of their connection always darkened by unspoken truths. I can't keep going like this, Felicity, he said, his voice low yet taut, like a bowstring pulled too far. The weight of his words lingered in the air between them, heavy with implications. What do you mean? Felicity replied, searching his eyes for answers that danced just out of reach. I mean, he paused, a flurry of emotions etching lines across his brow. He drew a shaky breath, breaking their gaze to look out over the lake, where shadows seemed to swirl and threaten to engulf them both. I'm not the man you think I am. Felicity took a tentative step forward, the soft squish of mud beneath her shoes, a reminder of how grounded they both needed to be. What do you mean by that? You've saved me more times than I can count. You fought for this place. Her voice wavered, almost cracking under the weight of his doubt. "And yet here I am," he answered, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Stuck in a pact that drags you down with me. Do you really think I want to bring more torment to the swamp?" His dark eyes pierced into hers, a mix of fear and determination. At that moment, everything stilled. Frogs stopped their croaking, the gentle breeze stuttered, as if even nature sensed the gravity of their words. Felicity felt a flicker of something deep within her, longing for connection, a need rooted in understanding, grounded in honesty. "Maybe we're both bound by expectations," she suggested softly, trying to bridge the chasm between them. "I started this airboat tour to save my family's legacy, but what if it was never about business? What if it was about us?" he finished, pushing off the tree, closing the distance between them with one fluid motion. His breath mingled with hers, a palpable tension thrumming in the air. "Yes," she whispered, her heart pounding against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. Suddenly, a commotion erupted nearby. Josie, Felicity's best friend, was flailing her arms while trying to catch an overzealous raccoon that had made off with a half-eaten sandwich. "You little thief! Come back here!" she shouted, laughter bubbling up, the absurdity breaking the tension. Belial chuckled softly, the sound music to Felicity's ears, and she found solace in how even chaos carried its own kind of rhythm. "Every adventure comes with its own distractions," he said, an amused light flickering in his eyes. As Josie continued her frantic chase, giggles erupted from a group of tourists standing nearby, snapping photos and cheering her on. It was a bizarre carnival of laughter mixed with the wilderness, and it distracted Felicity just enough to gather her thoughts. Turning back to Belial, she stepped closer, their warmth radiating like a warm flame. "What if our fears are just mirages?" she asked, courage threading through her tone. "What if we let go of our chains tonight, just for these precious few minutes?" He searched her gaze, uncertainty veiling his features, yet yearning fought fiercely against it. "You really think we can? Why not try?" She grinned mischievously, a flash of her adventurous spirit, breaking the tension, just as the sound of Josie's defeat echoed through the trees. With her daring challenge hanging in the air, Felicity leaned in, her breath mingling with the warmth of his skin. The world around them evaporated until there was only the weight of their hearts and the electric tension humming between them. And then, with an undeniable magnetism, he closed the distance. Their lips brushed softly, a tentative exploration, as the weight of every secret, every fear, dissipated in that singular, tender moment. The echo of laughter faded away, replaced only by the soft patter of their hearts finding a shared rhythm. As the kiss deepened, where once uncertainty thrived, only the lush promise of something new remained, grounding them both in an unexpected resolve. "Tonight," he murmured against her lips, a hopeful note threading through a moment steeped in mystery. "Let's claim what's ours." Scene 88. Nature's Wrath. The sun hung low over the swamp, casting long shadows that danced on the water's surface. Felicity Duval knelt by the edge of her airboat, her hands drenched in swamp muck as she meticulously sorted through the floating debris that had swept into her business's slip. A tangled mess of weeds, plastic bottles, and the occasional shocked frog. "Not exactly how I envisioned leading scenic tours," Felicity muttered, releasing a frustrated sigh as she tossed a piece of plastic into the nearby pile. Her emerald eyes narrowed, not entirely at the task at hand, but at the sharp, unyielding reality of her life teetering on chaos. Cale Omari appeared behind her, his presence a tempestuous swirl of charisma and complexity. He leaned against the airboat, arms crossed, the biceps of his tanned arms flexing slightly as he observed her struggle. "You know, Jolene, I can't help but think this mess is even worse than the tangled relationship you have with that foggy-eyed rival." Felicity turned, her jaw clenched. "Oh, are we still doing this? I have enough on my plate without your charmingly snide commentary." "Charming?" Cale raised an eyebrow, a smirk threatening to form. "I was going for devilishly handsome." Clearly, my charm was lost in translation. "Translation?" Felicity shot back. "You're still speaking nonsense, and maybe I should toss you in with the frogs. Less mess to clean up." Their banter reverberated through the swamp like wild thunder, cloaked in their underlying tension, the kind developed over shared burdens and failed attempts to sidestep feelings. The breeze shifted, thickening with humidity as ominous clouds began to coil in the sky. Felicity, you need to focus on. Kale started, but was interrupted by a low rumble echoing across the surface of the water. What? She asked. My complete and utter disarray? Because if you're offering a motivational speech. Without warning, the storm struck. The winds whipped through the trees, pulling leaves from their homes and hurling them into the chaotic air like confetti at a carnival gone wrong. Raindrops soon followed, each one like a violent accusation against the swamp. Get inside, Kale shouted as he abandoned his lazy posture, rushing toward her. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward the boat before the rain turned the world to gray. You're wetting my plans even more, Felicity protested, her voice rising above the tempest. We could have waited it out. Sure, he replied, pulling her inside with urgency. The door slammed shut, leaving a cocoon of humidity and the tang of earth. The airboat swayed violently, the low roar of the weather amplifying their heartbeat pulses. Inside, it felt both cramped and electric, the walls closing in just as their unresolved emotions surged forward. Kale's eyes darted to hers, searching, challenging. This isn't just about you and your dream, Felicity. We're both stuck in this. The swamp's grip won't release us unless we work together. Don't presume to know my struggles, she snapped, brows meeting in an unyielding line. You think this is all a game? I can't just let my past drag me down because you decided to sulk in yours. His jaw tightened, the veneer of humor slipping as they both fought against the mounting storm outside and in. You are remarkably infuriating. And you are remarkably stubborn, Felicity retorted, the edges of her frustration softening slightly. The momentum shifted. Kale stepped closer, the conflict simmering, his breath warm and palpable, igniting sparks between them. Maybe we need to embrace the chaos, find out what we really want amidst the storm. Chaos, huh? Felicity whispered, momentarily transfixed by the depth in his gaze. Or we could just sink the airboat and see if we float, a stylish way to drown in mediocrity. But just as the words left her lips, another crack of thunder shattered the moment, jolting them both. They exchanged glances weighed with vulnerability, understanding coursing through the air. Sometimes you have to drown to find clarity. Kale's voice softened, charged with newfound resolve. Or sometimes, she said softly, inching closer, you just need to hold on tightly to what matters. The tension hanging between them simmered with unspoken promise, a poignant melange of hope and turmoil that echoed through the shrinking distance. And as nature unleashed its wrath outside, inside their confined world, the atmosphere shifted once again, a delicate balance ready to tip. Scene 89. Rebuilding trust. The afternoon sun glinted sporadically through the gnarled branches of the cypress trees, casting irregular shadows across Felicity's cluttered airboat parking lot. She stood next to a rusting toolbox, a wrench dangling from her fingers, as the humidity clung to her skin like an unwelcome embrace. The swamp hummed around her with a cacophony of croaking frogs and the distant laughter of children from a nearby tour, reminding her of what was at stake. Here we go again, she muttered, squinting at the cracked engine that had been causing her more headaches than joy. If I could just get this to run. Come on, you old dinosaur. Just then, Kale sauntered over, hands in his pockets, an air of mischief dancing in his eyes. You do know that talking to machines doesn't usually yield results, right? Better than talking to you, Felicity shot back, feigning exasperation while a light smile broke through. This engine is nearly as stubborn as you are. Kale took a step closer, the scent of damp earth mingling with the sweet decay of magnolias hanging in the air. I can see where it gets that from. His tone was teasing, though the underlying weight of the past lingered like a summer storm ready to break. You keep making jokes, Kale, she replied, wiping her hands on her worn jeans. But you hide behind them. What's really bugging you? The moment hung suspended between them, silence punctuated by the distant echoes of laughter. Kale shifted, wary of what lay behind that question. Just the implications of what happened the other night. Felicity frowned, her stomach twisting at the memory of their last argument. Implications? What should I be worried about, Kale? Everything, he replied, clearing his throat as if the heaviness in the air thickened with each word. You don't know about my tether, my past. If I can't shake it off, it might drag you down too. A shrill laugh erupted from nearby. Felicity glanced over, spotting a group of tourists on a nearby airboat, their carefree joy contrasting sharply with her own rising tension. She turned back to Cale, who was looking out over the swamp, contemplating something deeper than the surface. Maybe it's not just about you, though. Felicity's voice softened. You carry your burdens so fiercely. But what about us? Us. His gaze snapped to her, intensity burning through the murky air. I don't know if I can give you what you deserve. Stop it. Felicity stepped closer, her breath catching slightly as she concentrated on his expressive eyes. This is about trust. We either work through this or we don't. Just tell me what you need. Cale took a moment, visibly wrestling with his own thoughts. You really want to delve into my darkness, don't you? It's not pretty. Life isn't pretty, Cale. She crossed her arms, her heart racing with tension. For me, it's about finding the feathers in the mud. Show me the feathers. Suddenly, humor flickered in Cale's gaze. Feathers, huh? Well, if you want an avalanche of feathers, I can summon them right now. Wouldn't be the first time you stirred the pot. Felicity smirked. She felt warmth rush through her. His levity diffused the tension, at least for a moment. As if on cue, thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, foreshadowing the storm brewing above them, a perfect metaphor for the stirring emotions below the surface. Right, let's see what we can do about your ancient airboat here. Cale wiped his palms on his shorts, moving to inspect the engine. Might be a giant alligator under there, too. Looks like we're in it together. The rising laughter of the tourists blended with the sound of raindrops beginning their descent upon the swamp, creating a symphony of chaos and beauty. Felicity let herself smile, hope starting to bloom, even amid doubt. But if it all goes south, don't come crying to me, she teased lightly, leaning against the boat, a sense of playful determination invading her spirit. Cale chuckled, rolling up his sleeves as he prepared to dive into the work. Deal, but remember this. You might just end up loving the chaos. The electric air crackled between them as the warmth of their past bathed them in possibilities, setting the stage for a storm of their own making. Scene 90. Culinary competitions. The swamp hummed with life, a canvas of buzzing insects and the intermittent croak of frogs as the morning sun peeked through the canopy, filtering golden light onto the rickety tables set around Fiddler's Green. A sign reading, Annual Swamp Cook-Off, flapped in the gentle breeze, flanked by colorful decorations made of driftwood and reeds. Here, among the laughter and playful jests, participants twisted ingredients in their hands like magicians conjuring tricks. Cale Omari wiped his brow, the humid air clinging to him. His playful demeanor remained intact, though he felt the burden of an agonizing decision looming. He inhaled the scent of spices, potent enough to evoke memories of past culinary exploits, memories that whispered of joy but were also steeped in the mire of his pact. You're really going with the swamp bugs? He bantered, leaning toward Felicity Duval, whose apron was dusted with flour and the remnants of diced veggies. What? You haven't tasted them yet. Felicity shot back teasingly, her dark curls bouncing with each motion. She meticulously arranged her ingredients. River shrimp, bright green okra, and a pinch of cayenne that sparkled like a burst of sunlight. I just don't want to lose my lunch at the first bite, Cale replied, winking over the bubbling pot. He found joy in their banter, relief coursing through him. Every sharp jab of humor felt like a breath of fresh air, a momentary escape from the chains binding his heart. Don't worry. If you don't like them, you can just tell everyone it was part of my fusion approach, swamp chic. The laughter in her voice reached into the crowd, lifting spirits as she tossed in the scrutinized ingredients. Across the table, Marlene Jenkins, the town librarian with an affinity for nutty soup, stirred furiously. You two are going to ruin this whole event. I'm coming for you both, she hollered jokingly, while fending off her mischievous younger brother Lionel, who was attempting to sneak bites of her soup. Felicity spun around, laughter bubbling out. Maybe it's a good idea to throw him in your pot, Marlene. I can hear the fat bubbling already. Cale chuckled as Lionel countered with mock horror. I'll go where the shrimp go, rather than be eaten. I have my standards. As the laughter cascaded like the bubbling broth, Cale's eyes roamed the crowd. Across the clearing, Josie LeClaire, drumming her fingers on a watermelon, drew a group around her. Y'all better get a taste of my signature watermelon salad. It's got sweet notes that are sure to bring the vibe. Tanya Myers, an aspiring chef and notorious jokester, piped up with a sly smile. Sweet? This is a competition, not a hug fest. Bring on the spice. She twirled theatrically before her cutting board, her hands dancing with chef's knives protruding from one of her cake bowls like a fireworks display gone awry. Back at Felicity's table, a stirring silence slowly enveloped Cale, his heart racing not from exertion, but from the gravity of what lay in wait. Felicity's focus darted between her pot and Cale's gaze. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, inadvertently tightening the invisible strings tying them together. "Maybe if I win, they'll let me cook in the city," he mused, though the words came out lighter than he felt. They both knew that winning was never truly on the table. As the weight of his own limitations loomed like storm clouds, he felt a mischievous grin surface. "And I have a secret weapon. What is it?" Felicity leaned in with wide eyes, brimming with enthusiasm. Before he could answer, a crash erupted from the neighboring table where Tina Hargrove, known for her clumsiness, had sent her enormous pot tumbling to the ground. The soup splattered like confetti, catching Josie and Tanya in the line of fire. Laughter exploded once more as they slipped in the mess, carefully avoiding it while trying to maintain dignity in a wholly undignified circumstance. "Time to improvise," Felicity declared with glee, shifting her stance and expertly balancing a dash of spice as if her life depended on it. "Everyone for yourself." Cale's heart soared, buoyed not only by the joyous chaos, but by the resolve that swirled in a way only the swamp could orchestrate. With the moment breathing heavy in the air, he leaned closer to Felicity, his breath catching, keenly aware of the closeness and the warmth that radiated between them. "Felicity?" he murmured, captivated by her vivacity against the backdrop of polished laughter. She turned, a beautiful comet in the radiance of the sun. "Yeah?" His voice dropped, imbued with a weighty seriousness that felt wholly unexpected in such a light-hearted cacophony. "Let's make this our last laugh." And in that brief moment, time slowed, mingling with the sizzling pots and melting barriers. This was more than just a cook-off. It was a vivid tapestry of connection, pushing them just a bit deeper into the mire they both feared and loved. Scene 91, challenging old rivalries. The sun barely broke through the dense canopy of Spanish moss, casting dappled shadows on the bark of ancient cypress trees. Jolene Duval stood at the bustling docks of Bayou organizing an array of colorful flyers for the upcoming airboat festival. The air was thick with the earthy aroma of damp soil, mixed with the sweet, lingering scent of magnolias. Laughter echoed from a nearby booth, the vibrant sound clashing with the tightening tension coiling within her chest. "Here's your coffee, boss lady," a familiar voice chirped, breaking through her thoughts. Cale Omari approached, a steaming cup in hand, exuding a playful charm despite the lingering storm in his cobalt blue eyes. "Thanks," she said, taking a sip, feeling the warmth spread through her. Her lips turned up for a fleeting smile. Beneath the laughter, a muted anxiety clung to her, woven tightly with the bright colors of the festival. "Need a hand with that?" Cale asked, gesturing at the flyers. "You know I've been known to fold things into nice little piles." "Oh, please, do show me your techniques," she teased, eyes sparkling. But an unsettled feeling settled in the pit of her stomach. Today wasn't just about festivities. This was also the day she'd face Charlene Wild, the reigning queen of swamp festivals and longtime rival whose competitive nature overshadowed even the wildest alligators. Before Cale could step closer, a clamor of voices erupted from the other end of the dock, abruptly halting their banter. A group of locals had gathered around Charlene, who stood perched on a stack of crates, wearing a crown of wildflowers and a confidence that dared anyone to challenge her. "All I'm saying, folks, is a true tour guide can steer a boat and raise a festival." Charlene shouted, her voice smooth like honey. "Can Jolene Duval do both? I have my doubts." The crowd erupted into laughter, a mix of admiration and mockery. Jolene glanced at Cale. The amusement in his eyes faded. "Let me guess, she's not here to wish you luck?" "Nope, just the usual anxieties wrapped in a pretty bow," Jolene replied, a bite creeping into her tone. "Something about her doesn't sit right, though." "Maybe it's her hair," Cale chuckled, attempting levity, but knew all too well the weight of old rivalries. Or maybe it's just her overinflated ego, Jolene murmured, her eyes glued to Charlene, her heart racing. As if sensing the scrutiny, Charlene met Jolene's gaze and grinned widely, a challenge in her eyes. It felt like a gauntlet hurled straight into her chest. What's wrong, Jolene? Scared to dance in the spotlight? Maybe I'll take that stage for you. Jolene felt the adrenaline rushing, and out of nowhere she shot back. Why not? I might even toss you a bouquet if you pass out from your own hot air. The crowd gasped and laughed in delight. Kale's smile widened, churning encouragement. Look at you. That was good. Jolene chuckled, despite herself, buoyed by the electricity sparking between them. The humor sizzled, but the tension crackled just beneath the surface. Across the gathering, Charlene looked taken aback for a moment, a crack in her flamboyant exterior, but recovery came easily. She pointed toward the festival stage, her tone layered with syrupy mockery. You think you can impress this town? With you out here flailing? I'd set up camp before the curtain even rises. At that moment, an awkward silence enveloped the crowd. Jolene shrugged that away, pushing herself forward. I may not be a queen, but I can surely put on a better show than an outdated diva in need of a makeover. The crowd roared. Laughter and murmurings rippled through the festival goers. Jolene felt the pulse of victory in her veins, but spotted the widening grin on Kale's face. His gaze locked onto hers, every bit of uncertainty erased by admiration. Let me know when you're ready for that dance-off, Charlene. Jolene shot back, fueled by adrenaline as her smile grew warm and genuine. Kale leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear, and whispered, You've got this, Jolene. Just don't let her drag you down. But even as her heart soared, the intricacies of the confrontation played heavily on her mind. Rivalries never stayed buried for too long, and today was simply a reminder of that truth. She turned to Kale, her voice a hushed intensity. Are you with me on this? Always, he replied, his expression a mixture of determination and vulnerability, caught between the joy of battle and fear of loss. As the crowd erupted into applause, Jolene realized this was more than just a festival. It was a reckoning, a confrontation of uncertainties that demanded clarity, strength, and perhaps an unexpected transformation beneath the canopy of the bayou. Scene 92, Community Spirit Shines. The air hung thick in the gathering twilight, the scent of wet earth mingling with the sweet, lingering aroma of fried catfish from Miss Rhea's food truck. Flickering string lights bobbed lazily above, illuminating the makeshift tables and vibrant banners that flapped cheerily in the breeze. Laughter echoed through the swamp as neighbors greeted one another with hearty smiles, weaving a palpable sense of unity among the chaos. Kale Omari took a moment to survey the crowd, his shoulders slightly hunched as if the weight of his secrets pressed down like a heavy fog. Despite the laughter that surrounded him, silence simmered within, a tension coiling in the pit of his stomach. He caught Felicity Duval across the lawn, directing a group of kids as they painted a giant plywood alligator. She wielded her paintbrush like a conductor leading an orchestra, the sunlight catching her dark curls, glowing as if on fire. Hey, Kale, called Marcus, a burly man with a laugh that could shake floors. You want to help with the bonfire tonight? Sure, why not? Kale replied, forcing a smile, his heart still shadowed by memory. But as he walked toward Marcus, he caught Felicity's eye. The way her lips curved up, full of mischief, ignited something inside him. Meanwhile, Felicity's mind raced with a slew of tasks. Jasmine, can you please help me get more paint? She instructed her younger sister, who was engrossed in drawing glittery stars on the alligator's back. A soft huff drew her attention. It was Jolene, sporting a bright yellow apron and arms crossed defiantly. You realize we'll be here until dawn if we don't start working together, right? Come on, Jolene. Felicity laughed, nudging her friend. This is about fun. The festival is for us to unwind, not just work. Their banter flowed easily, a comfortable rhythm in the midst of bustling chaos. The two friends leaned closer, sharing thoughts on their dreams, painting bright visions against the darkening sky. Suddenly, a shout disrupted the moment. It came from a small group gathering around Ms. Rhea's food truck. Did you hear? Stan and Joyce are back together, Shannon exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Are you serious? That must be some swamp magic, laughed Ty, a witty soul who could turn any bombshell into comic relief. Last I heard, they were doing the tango in the "don't you dare look at me" type of dance. Felicity chuckled, her heart momentarily lifted by the collective joy. But then she spotted Cale again, alone near the fire pit. A pang of worry gripped her. She could see the burden in his shoulders, the chaos in his eyes. "Jolene, I'll be right back," Felicity said hurriedly, dashing toward Cale. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern lacing her tone as she slipped into his orbit. "Just," Cale began, pausing to lock eyes with her. It felt like they were the only two people in the world. The cacophony faded, leaving just the whisper of her breath. "I'm fine," he finished, brushing it off, but she could feel it, the truth pulsating just beneath the surface, like the murky waters of the swamp. "You're not fooling anyone, Keel," she said softly, leaning in, her voice threading through the stillness. "You don't have to carry this alone." The air thickened, and for a moment the world around them blurred. He searched her eyes, wonder and fear colliding as the laughter around them fell to whispers. "I want to tell you," Keel began, eyes narrowing with intent. The electric charge crackled in the air between them, a bridge across the chasm of secrets. Just as he leaned closer, drawn by something unnamed, a loud explosion of laughter interrupted, pulling them apart momentarily. Marcus's booming voice boomed again, but it wasn't just chatter, it was laden with urgency. "Hey, we need more wood for the fire." Felicity chuckled despite the weight around them, her heart racing for a different reason. "Guess the alligators lost interest. We better join the circus back there," she said lightly, trying to ease the air between them, yet the tension remained electric. "Yeah, the community is counting on us," Cale replied, then hesitated, a glint of longing flickering in his eyes. "We'll talk later?" "Absolutely," Felicity promised, strength woven into her fingers as they brushed, igniting a spark. Together they turned back toward the crowd, laughter flooding in once more. Yet the unspoken thread lingered in the air, an anchor to the intimacy they shared and the chaos yet to come. As the fire blazed high, illuminating the night, the community gathered, wrapping their collective arms around one another, pulses united in a swirl of warmth and friendship. In that moment, Felicity locked eyes with Cale. A promise hovered unbroken between them, a soft whisper of hope amidst the revelry that surrounded them. Scene 93, Financial Strain and Struggles. Jolene paced the dock, her boots squelching against the disheveled wood. The damp swamp air clung to her skin like a weight. Overhead, the sky churned ominously, thunder rumbling in the distance, mirroring the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. Financial troubles glared at her from her balance sheets, painted in stark black and white. The once thriving airboat business her family had cherished now felt like a sinking vessel, and the laughter of tourists had been replaced by the incessant buzz of failure gnawing at her insides. A gust of wind swept past, stirring the dead leaves around her feet. Cale, leaning against a nearby post, watched her with a brooding gaze, his dark curls almost electric under the growling sky. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Jolene." "Financial ghosts, more like it." She shot back, frustration lacing her tone. "If I can't turn this around, we might have to shut down. You know that, right?" His expression shifted, concern flickering beneath his charm. "We? You mean you. This is your dream, not mine." The lightweight jab lingered between them, thickening the air despite his playful tone. "Maybe it would feel more like a dream if I wasn't drowning in debt." She threw her arms up, gripping the edge of the dock tightly. "You don't understand the pressure. I can't just watch." "Pressure? What about my pressure?" Cale stepped closer, the footfalls on wood barely audible amidst the coming storm. "I made a pact, Jolene. This swamp demands a price, and I'm stuck in the middle of it. Everything is tangled." "And you use that as an excuse?" She interrupted, her voice rising like the thunderclouds above. "You talk about it like it's an easy burden. I can't afford to have you stuck in this swamp with me, Cale." Before he could respond, she turned, marching away from him. But the winds carried a reminder of their connection, and she could almost smell the wood smoke of his presence as he fell in step beside her. "I never wanted you to feel alone in this, Jolene. That's not what love is supposed to be." Jolene halted, the suddenness snapping their rhythm. "What do you know about love?" Her voice softened, betraying the crack in her armor, even as she tried to fortify it. "Love doesn't fix problems. It just makes them more complicated." I guess it's easier to lock your heart away than to risk being disappointed, Cale replied, the tension in his voice slicing through the air like the crack of thunder. He stepped closer, his breath mingling with the dampness enveloping them. But I want to help. You need someone on your side. And what if I'm on the wrong side? Jolene snapped, her eyes flashing with hidden fears. What if I fail? What if this all goes under and you regret choosing to be here? Maybe I'm already stuck here in this swamp, whether you want me or not, he said, his tone all dark humor despite his serious gaze. A silence fell, punctuated only by the distant croaking of frogs and the rustling of the swamp. For a moment it felt as if the world had held its breath, and she could see it, the deep yearning behind his teasing facade, the flickering desire to connect, to break free from the bond of shadows. You don't get to make choices for me or for us, Jolene whispered, her voice finally quieting, and I can't carry this burden alone. Cale reached for her, fingers brushing against her arm, his touch a whisper against her skin.